me to dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance.
Yeah, it's like the the phone booth thing on your like laptop. It's like the tie-dye sequence where both
What,
like
what if we
becomes Shiva. It's like
what if we had people who tune in just for the intro and then leave? They just want to see the intro and then us have a laugh, and then they're like, okay, that's cool.
They're like, yeah, your engagement is quite good. However, the most people leave after the first minute. Can you
what up? What up? What up?
What up? What up? What's up?
How's it going, people? We are back.
Path Forward Tribe. How are you? What's going on, everyone? How's your week going? Are there enough current events to stir your pot? I mean, what's happening in your world, Bill? How are you doing, man?
If not, I would say get ready to travel, everybody. Today we are about to take an epic trip. We're gonna go on location to Brazil, and we want to just talk about culture and music with you. You know, I think another thing. Yeah. Barça, bro, come on, the march, the samba. Yeah, get ready. It's Carnaval is around the corner. Mardi Gras, as some of y'all might know, but yeah, we're going to talk about all that. I think just to tie in real quick, be like, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about today. Like, you know, in recent episodes and the restart of all this, we continue to come back to being a contribution to you guys. And I think I was telling Pasquale like yesterday or just before this show, it's like, man, we share such a rich musical and cultural life that it's almost kind of like the air we breathe, and forget that can be a real contribution. So some of y'all who we're connected to know about some of all these aspects of music, things like samba, so you might have heard of comparsa, you know, a little bit. These are rhythms basically, and the culture around that, our experiences in Cuba, and the religions that were created in the New World, truly New World phenomena, to me, of Santeria in Cuba and the Caribbean, but then very related to that is Candomblé in Brazil. So
yeah, I think it's fascinating, brother. Like you were talking about the New World, and sure, like the official like political stuff happens, and people are taking over, and you know, system is in place, and the infrastructure of democracy or whatever is happening in various countries. But then the music always like comes up and becomes part of that, you know, cultures, and if not continent or world awareness and consciousness, whether it's reggaeton or salsa or you know, jazz or funk or you know, I think it's fascinating how music influences culture and influences the world.
It is to me, music is first. It is the bleeding edge. It is the first expression of a cultural combination. Let's just grab this. I don't think we planned to go this deep, but this is something I think about a lot and want to have on the show more. Is, you know, we are in an era where we are, you know, especially in younger generations, but we're really looking at a society, good or bad or however we're doing it, at racism and cultural appropriation, and there's a lot of conversation about that right now. And what I don't hear, what I'd like for you to hear here is something you don't hear, is the recognition that for me, a lot of the most beautiful expressions and culture and art are that mix. You got to understand that fundamentally, jazz, which is at the source, and a lot of these Latin rhythms, they don't exist without European instrumentation and music and some of their musical composition connecting and merging with African. And that had started in Europe and Africa, by the way, previously, and indigenous cultures. And then I'm just going to say it. There is something to that happening in the New World, in the Caribbean, in the Americas, in South America, in the United States that is special. There's something about the places and that mix coming together. If you've ever been to New Orleans, that is the ethos of that city for the United States. That's probably the most accessible for Americans, for a lot of our audience, or people to just think of, which is the birthplace of jazz, which without that combination, everything that you think of as popular music, not just hip hop and rap, all your pop music, rock and roll, does not exist. It is all the children of that combination, that mixture. So it's not, I mean, I want to be aware of cultural appropriation, but it's like every side needs to understand and come together to realize, hey man, the beauty is in the offspring.
Yeah, for sure, man. That, like the drum set being the marching band, like you're mentioning, the harmonic influence from Debussy and other, contemporary stuff that was happening in Europe, and blended with, like, um, Black Americans who were forced to not play hand drums, right?
Hmm.
And so they
Let's
they
talk
they
about
oh,
this.
what's going on there? There's a orchestra. Let me put the drum set's very, very new. The saxophone is a very new instrument. Like, it's
Hmm.
like necessity is the mother of invention. But um the influence and the power of those things, music, man, like that self-expression cannot be denied. I don't care whether it's under the auspices of slavery or communism or totalitarianism or whatever system of government is in place, or whatever, because
Hmm.
we're very good at being shitty to one another. That's like,
Yeah,
we've
that's
proven
it.
that over thousands of
That's it.
years. Like,
Hmm.
human
Hmm.
human beings just have a really great knack for being terrible to one another. So,
But
but the music cannot be stopped, and so we are going to be like, the carnival was, one of the only days that the Afro-Brazilian slaves could express themselves and be. That's the whole concept, right? Is that they had 1 or 2 days free where they could actually have a good time. And now, like, the whole country, and with your girl Patricia, who lives there, like, they live and breathe. This event, like, has become a cultural phenomenon in Brazil that lasts the whole year. Like, the samba schools are training. The context of the whole thing is carnival, man, and it's such a beautiful thing to think about.
yeah, yeah, and I think maybe some people don't know too. I mean, like we both come from like families that have Catholic heritage as well, right? As a part of all this, because it was the Spanish, right, conquistadors and pioneers and Portuguese and those the Catholicism blended with the African traditions and religions in part, and self-expression, which, just by the way, and you can say a lot of those tribes, which are now, for instance, Nigeria, the Yoruba Ndavo was a language, a culture, and a large tribe, right? And ancient human history. I mean, the general term for the basis of these religions can be table of Ifa, and to me, it's probably the oldest religious practices in human history. As in, if you're a human being, you are connected to this. We're talking about like what was taken from the African migration, of the migration of all human beings. I mean, that drumming, let's go back to the instruments to make that very concrete. Like that hand drumming, that's a form, one of the earliest forms of communication over a distance.
For sure, man. And the combination of drumming, dancing, and singing, which in my
Mhm.
opinion are the three most fundamental
Mhm.
um, like aspects of being alive.
Mhm.
The most like tribal, elemental, important, fundamental expressions of being a human being: drumming, dancing, and singing. Like for those peoples to develop those systems, the super complex polyrhythms, to be able to connect with the divine, which
Mhm.
they themselves became the orishas and the saints. And so all, you know, whether that's, you know, manifested like you said in Brazil through candomblé, and you know, dude, I keep thinking about like how many things we're going to be discovering, you know, over there. It's not,
Exactly, and, like,
it's
we know I wanna break down for people too, here's, like, the contribution part, like, I think people have heard of some of all this, but not everyone really understands. You might hear the word polyrhythms. Like, I want people to understand this interlocking system. So, right, polyrhythms, multiple drums going on at the same time that all have parts that fit together to become a whole. But you know, a lot of people hear that, and frankly, look, I'm a white guy from the north side of Seattle, so you know, if you want to have a contest, let's go for it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
me in
love that.
Minneapolis will give you a run for your money, and I'm Irish, like, so, you know, a lot of people like Poshko and I make fun of what we have this shorthand, an inside joke we call rumma tum tum, right? Is our joke. Like, there you'll see a lot of people out of the 60s and the counterculture. Even part of why we know about this was the expansion of a lot of this music. And honestly, this predates, because out of that you saw the combination, the bringing of Indian music, right? If you know a little something about rock and roll and the Beatles, the first big international rock band, they're the model for all rock bands. If you didn't know that, then they, as they were experimenting with drugs and meditation and spirituality, connected with a lot of Indian artists and gurus and brought them into popular culture. Well, before the Beatles did that, in jazz, Dizzy Gillespie and a number of jazz artists who were playing in the late 40s into the early 50s, along with the beat writers and authors. So Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, who essentially are the godfathers of the counterculture of the 60s, of the hippies, of Woodstock, right? Of all of that, what you know as a festival. Who's going to go to a music festival this summer? They're huge now. How many festivals are there now? We're talking about the roots of all this, right? The source. Okay. So a lot of that culture and a lot of festivals, you see people drumming, or they'll be having drumming circles, and it's not interlocked, is my whole point. Right? It's rumba tumma tum to everyone's kind of playing their thing, and people are just, I just dance. I'm feeling it, which is, it's great for anyone to connect to, but there is, for me at least, there is a magic. There is an unlocking, and there is access to spiritual enlightenment and knowledge through not just the interlocking of the drums, it is the dance and the singing as well.
I
So
love that. And,
all
and
those parts, right? Talk,
it's
and
like,
you know that more intimately as the percussionist, but let's help
well,
people understand that.
well, yeah, you know, it's like learning how to break the rules after you know them and have
Mhm.
mastered the rules, and that kind of goes for anything. And so, while you know anyone in their drum circles is totally cool, like the there's a limit to all of that stuff. You know, there's it's like, you know, these specific rhythms that have been passed down with oral tradition from generation to generation are so amazing and specific that, you know, the ceremony will not work unless all those components are there, you know. And that's what's going to be so great, to go down there and to, you know, like to uncover. There's so many genres, man, and it's
Mhm.
developing so fast, you know,
Oh,
like with electronic music and just all the different cultures that you were referencing to that live, you know, and thrive in Brazil, the indigenous different cultures, the Portuguese. So there's a lot of different genres of music, and it's just, I think it's just the best way to learn about any culture is through the music. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we can share it. I don't know.
oh,
We'll share some live footage, or we'll figure
mhm.
it out
We'll
because
record some, yeah. But it is a whole thing. I mean, we are going to a giant, so in Brazil and in Rio, we're going to Rio de Janeiro. Is like it, I mean, I haven't been yet, but from everything we hear from our friends and the pictures and what you can see, you know, there's the big parades that you you've all seen on TV or in movies where there's the huge costumes with lots of feathers, right? And all of the dancers, and there's male and female dancers, and then there's a whole organized group of drummers. There's schools of samba, I'll brutalize it in Portuguese, but escuela de samba. It's the school of samba, yeah. And they have floats just like we do in a parade, like the Rose Parade that takes place in Pasadena, not far from where you're at, Pasquale. Like, that's nationally known. But then imagine everyone practicing like a marching band would, with a whole group of dancers, to a series of rhythms where all the rhythms and the different drum parts are interlocking, the dancers are interlocking, everyone's dancing, and that's like the big presentation version of it that but people do this themselves in their neighborhoods. There's like block parties. Like wherever you live, imagine your neighborhood getting together, and some Americans will know this because you may have a sense of that from New Orleans. That's part of what happens in New Orleans and Mardi Gras. Same, festival, right? Same holiday. Yes, brother. That's the big show. Sambadrome.
See, this is like, imagine, over each school of samba, there's 20 some schools of samba that all compete every year for the title of, champion or the number one samba school. And it consists of literally several thousand drummers, dancers, and singers that are parading in sync, and they practice all year for this. So I'm just waiting to hear that thunder of percussion. Da, 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 dum, dum, dum. And
it makes you march. Those rhythms, comparsa, are a marching. They are connected with what I'm saying from Western European marches and African, rhythms that came together, merged together. And in that shot, it was beautiful. I was going to say, you see the different colors, right? Those are like different teams. Just think of, our teams. Like, we talked about football last week. We both watched football, whatever your teams. Imagine your teams, right? Your different marching bands. We're used to that same thing, have their different colors, same thing. But then it proliferates. So, like here we're like, oh, we see marching bands in America, but not many neighborhoods have their neighborhood marching band or their neighborhood, band party where like y'all get out in the street and play some instruments and have some drinks and party and dance. Like, that's it, man. Where I'm like the locals in the street, everyone feels this draw and this urge to celebrate and to play these rhythms and to express themselves.
Sure, man. It's for me. It's like I thought about, like, we always talk about the phrase like future primitive. It's like, so relevant, and I just want to feel that vibrancy, that saudade, that like, there's a reason why different things happen, like bossa nova in the 50s. Like there have been little tiny spurts where these genres of music have like gone to like worldwide fame, and it may happen again. Who knows with pop music? And I'm so excited to just be a part of it, brother, and to experience it firsthand. Hopefully, as less of a tourist and more of a a local. And
get we got some local guides, hopefully to some degree, and we're going to be exploring on our own.
Yeah, and taking drum lessons and just taking the deep dive, man, because there's nothing like, for me in my musical journey, just learning those infectious rhythms, man. They're just beautiful, and they just they make me feel alive. So
they move me, like whatever it is in me, like, literally being the white guy from the suburbs of Seattle, like how is it that they move me so strongly? I mean, I love a good rock band. I love to rock out of the show. I've been so fortunate, both of us, to see so much live music, and to interact with so many amazing musicians and artists. But there is something special in Cuba, and I know just from everything I listen to in Brazil that it is infectious, and it moves you, and it just has a rich living feel to it. And we know that, there's a smoothness in Brazil. I think that bossa nova, if Gilberto, like if you know some of the artists that are world famous, there's this smoothness to it, and that is kind of a, almost put it like a, in Cuba it's like rumba is the rhythm, right? And rumba dancing, if you know that. I mean, there's even ballroom dancing is maybe what a lot of people even know more than the traditional rhythms. But
Yeah, yeah. I
okay,
think like the theme of like having, and even here with gospel music, like the secular or pop music is kind of like what you see,
yes,
but then behind the
yes,
scenes is the religious music, and that kind of
that's
supply
where I go.
supplies the backbone, the foundation for the music of a lot of these different cultures, including arguably North American or U.S. music too, with gospel.
Blues.
Like, man, some of the best musicians I've ever played with have been gospel, because they're playing at the services 6-7 hours. Like it's their traditions of where it's just like the way they grew up, and it's black or white, doesn't matter. That's the one thing that has always appealed to me. And
Hmm.
maybe I'm idealizing it, but music doesn't have any color lines. I mean, I've seen like the most talented people that should never have even learned about like Afro-Cuban music, but are well respected from all the heads in Cuba. So it, for me, that's also a really kind of liberating thing too, just the possibility or the potential or the possibility of like cultures actually seeing each other through the
Yes,
music, instead of like
yes.
beating the other person down for an unnecessary traffic stop.
Oh my goodness, God.
Like,
Oh,
why
that's the
can't we
sweet.
get more of
Yes,
that? More of
dude.
the music, not
Yes.
more of that.
Yes, that is what we need here, man. That is the path forward. Let's that is it, dude. Way to tie that in to the week, man. To see this brutality and this hatred in America, and it's everywhere, right? All of a sudden, and it should be. It should be seen. Do not let me skip over that. However, I personally, just for me, I didn't watch the video. I saw some other
I
posts.
I couldn't watch the video,
Someone
man.
posted a video of Trey, and I'm losing his name right now, which is disrespectful. So please, recognition of you and your spirit and your presence. But someone posted a video. There was a personal video of his skateboarding. Just skateboarding, and be like, hey, don't watch that. Watch him living and doing what he loves. And that is what I
Tyree
want people
Tyree Nichols from
say.
Memphis. Yeah,
Say his name, Tyree Nichols. His name is on my lips, out my mouth.
Tyree
And
Nichols. Yeah.
and so many others that we what we don't see, what I want to see here is exactly what you're talking about. There is something to me, for me, that the information that music is, the information that we're talking about that comes through in these rhythms, and that we see at that surface level, and we're going to talk about the spiritual aspect, how deep that goes, that the depth of that, the power and the source of that, to get closer and put, to me, it gets pure at the source in a way, to some degrees. Okay, it's my experience. And we that information flows through all people and to all people. Everyone can know and recognize their culture, I think, but to see each other, it's the same as when we say, when you're playing music, check your ego at the door. Because if you think it's about you, it can be entertaining for a little while, but I defy you to find any great musician. You hear again and again and again, great musicians, great artists. We have a legacy in Western culture of talking about the muses, of the information that flows through you, that is not about you. It comes from something greater. It comes from the network. It comes from a much greater system. These higher levels of knowledge that I'm talking about. It's and this isn't some tangent. It's literally in the first paragraph at pathforward.net. See that website right down over there? That's the way I point on my camera. Like, if you go read, it's about that we are having a cultural revolution in part, as well as a physical revolution that I call the threshold. And we need to remember, what I want to remind people is, as a contribution, there was a time when literacy, not many people were literate across Western Europe, across much of the world. There were either oral traditions, or where there were written traditions, there were an elite, there were priests, there were the wealthy, there were some folks that had, facile literacy, that it was common and fluent, but there were a lot of people who was intentionally kept away from the couldn't read and write. Still happens today, by the way. And then now we don't even think about the revolution, that the mass literacy and the access of digital culture and digital information, and what's called the information age, we're at a crescendo that's taking us to what's next. Right? We're understanding we're in an information age where we are so focused on information. This isn't just philosophical, people. If you want to understand what drives the economy, anybody who's really pulling down money, any company that clocks in billions of dollars every year, it's about information. They're about information. It's about information and energy. That's what equals power. Money is a result, right? Money is a result. Money is the leaves on the tree. And that information is coming from a higher architecture, something that is a part of reality. This is what Plato talked about in part, right? There 2 + 2 existed before there was mathematics, right? 2 + 2 = 4, whatever E = mc². You can get as complicated as you want. Mathematics and music are related. They're different transcriptions, different ways of writing the same information oftentimes. And we're talking about the source of that musical information. A lot of that links back to Africa and to these religious experiences. So what I find in our culture is that a lot of these popular and secular expressions are very common, but we're not seeing what you're talking about, people recognizing each other through their culture and connecting to that which expresses itself beyond cultural appropriation, beyond something that is at the surface or the skin level. And for me, and I'll stop my tirade here pretty quick, but to me, as much as Catholicism is a part of my family and my culture, and we're not talking about my Irish culture, but it is one of the only ways that I can access the origins of Irish culture that existed before the Romans conquered the Isle of Ayr and Ireland, which is Ireland, and the remnants of the Book of Kells. The same thing is true for these African cultures that blended with Catholicism. But the church, oftentimes, to me, someone once said, feels like a host without blood, meaning a body without blood.
Wow.
I imagine that there was a time when there was sangre, when there was blood flowing through, and I have been around Christian experiences where there is blood flowing, but we should remember that we're very removed from the origins of that in most of my experiences. When we went to Cuba, when Santeria became a part of my spirituality, when this music infected me, which we were talking about earlier, all of these reasons, everything I just went off about, was like living, breathing spiritual practice. There was blood surging. There's a pulse. It's alive. It's tangible. You can taste it and feel it. And somehow a lot of us are disconnected from that. And there are these traditions, these mixtures. So it's Santeria, as I had said, in Cuba and the Caribbean, a lot of the Caribbean, and Candomblé, which we're going to go explore through our experience of Santeria. They share the Orishas, right? Are easier to say, they align with the saints, and they're your spiritual guides. There are some of the original angels and spiritual guides, is a way for us to understand it from the West. Yeah. What's your experience, Pasquale, of all that I just went off about?
It really resonated with me when you said the post without blood. I think I don't know. I have a love hate relationship with Catholicism and the Holy Roman Empire and all that.
Same.
It's interesting. I'm going through catechism communion classes with my son and
Mhm.
taking him to mass. But dude, I fall asleep when I go to
Mm.
mass because it's so fucking boring.
Well, and there's to me the thing to not forget about this because it's easy to go on a tangent around all that, but the compassionate heart of Christ, the actual words, the living words of whoever that person or entity was for you or in your life. We know that there were prophets. To me, the tribes of Abraham and David had, you know, prophecy
Yeah,
and insight.
it's all stories, but
Christ, yeah,
like
and Muhammad, but that was living at that time, right? And then there's all of this structure that goes around that. That's why that it's like there is a through line, there is a source there also. It's just oftentimes buried, and there was something happened when that was merged with the Africans who were enslaved and genocided, killed off in mass, that they were shouting out their culture and their religion, and they merged the two together, and it became something new.
yeah, and because it had to. I mean,
Mm,
and that's my problem is that it's all fine and dandy what you believe, but don't try to impose it on me because that's it. That's the heart
mhm,
of what Christianity has done for the last 2,000 years. It's gone to the
mhm,
various parts of the world and mandated in Ireland, in Albania, and anywhere that
mhm.
they've gone that this is the only way. And as I
And
started studying world religions in college, like I started to really see for myself that yeah, there's some like through line messages and some like commonalities. But there's truth in a lot of different religions, like, there's, the 5-year-old in India practicing Hinduism has no less chance to seek, to live a good life and maybe go to paradise or whatever that looks like. It's, I don't know.
yeah, man, that's my
But
my favorite bumper sticker. Can I interrupt you or go ahead? You want to finish your thought?
no, just that's I guess what really appeals to me about
Hmm.
the new world is because like it's relevant, it's happening now, and yeah, I've never been to Brazil and I've never seen any music live there, like either secular or religious. So it's going to be a trip, man, to
Yeah.
feel it. And like you said, to see the similarities between Candomblé and Santeria and just how it goes down in general, man. Because you know, I don't know. I'm just really excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, to tie that in and just pick off what you were saying, like your experience of learning about all these other religions. My favorite bumper sticker saying ever that I ever saw, God is way too big for any one religion or book. To me, and I think this is reality, if you think your book or your prophet or your religion has captured that force which created our sun, a star, let alone at any night, every night I usually walk outside before I go to bed, and I look out, and I live in the Pacific Northwest, so a lot of times I see clouds. When the sky is clear, it is beautiful, and it's been clear and cold now in the winter season sometimes. I mean, just look up. Like, if you even begin to spend a little bit of your time understanding the scope and size of one star, what that really actually really is. This is not fantasy land. Go outside. It's shining on you
Mm-mm.
right now. Do you understand it's 66,000 times the volume of the earth? It takes 66 approximately thousand earths to balance the scales with our sun. Can you imagine? We're gonna fly. We're gonna fly to Brazil. I'm coming one of the longest. I'm coming from Seattle. It's gonna be 6 hours to Miami and 8 or 9 hours from Miami to Rio. Like, if we were traveling that same distance on the sun, I think it would take us something like I don't even know if it's 6 months or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just to start to wrap your head around that. So if you think that my group of people got it all figured out, then you're talking about humans. You're talking about false idols. You are talking about a human in like realization of that which is greater, which I was talking about earlier. That is not the force that created the universe. If you take all religions, religious experience, and genuine prophecy and insight and add it together, we might start to get a very fuzzy picture of
Right.
what actually exists.
You're so right, and it's funny that at the same time, we're talking about this that new telescope, not the Hubble, the new one,
James Webb,
the
yeah,
James Webb. You know, like
WST.
we're seeing so many different things.
Mm.
But I think a lot of it has to do with people just wanting to be right.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, my
Yep.
religion's better than yours, and
Yeah,
you know those damn Muslims or the you know
yeah.
the Hindus, and it's absolutely
Mhm.
crazy how these things that are supposed to like teach, you know, kind of be a handbook for being a good human has resulted in, you know, more bloodshed than anything else.
Mhm.
And so music for me has always been the guiding light. Music for me has always been the way, the true, the true freedom, you know, like
Mhm.
the real potential for humans to for me to express myself and to be to spread that, to have that immediate sonic, like man, when you play live music in front of someone, like you're affecting the energy of the room. It's just incredible.
Mhm.
So
And it is powerful, man. It is powerful and it heals. And that makes me think, just to loop that back, that may Memphis, right? May while we are in Brazil and celebrating Carnival, can you imagine when there's neighborhoods where the cops or in a city and they're dancing in the streets with the people that they police and oversee? Do you think that they would just chase down a motorist and brutally assault and kill him? There's a complete cultural disconnect rather than connecting. It is these connections that are part of the solution. Like, we have to culturally come together and participate and celebrate and play music together. I'm not saying that is some woo-woo, wouldn't this be nice thing to do. Like, you want to see the cost when you don't do that?
mm,
Welcome to what's going on. Our,
welcome
our,
to our
our,
news. There have been
yeah,
more mass shootings in the month of just the month and 2 days of 2023. That it's compounding, you
yeah.
know, and a lot of it is not to like dive into specifics, but you know, after 9/11, the Patriot Act gave
Mhm.
the police and just about every law enforcement agency really liberal, widespread power, and so
And
and
militarization, the
and
sale of military
cou-
style
coupled
equipment
with like, you know,
tactics.
when do these people ever get punished for what they do?
Hmm.
You know, like they get a slap on the wrist, maybe a suspension, you
Hmm.
know, you know, and this doesn't happen in other countries. I'm idealizing other countries. There's problems everywhere, but
Hmm.
there's a fabric, there's a infection, a disease of violence that's
Hmm.
in this country, that's woven into the DNA of who we are, that
Yes.
has to be eliminated, man, because
And
it's scary.
yes. And you know what it is? These ideas and culture are psychologically infective. This is they become infectious. You mentioned, hey, maybe we'll talk about Bolsonaro and even the riots and the sacking of the presidential palace and essentially Congress in Brazil. And literally Bolsonaro's in Florida and has people talking to Trump and these ideas. And I'm not trying to like marginalize anybody else. I really do believe in freedom, and you have a right to figure it out, so long as you're not coming down on other people. But these infectious ideas, well, guess what else is infectious? We were just talking about these rhythms. So we were literally saying about these rhythms in this culture that's come to us, and a big part of what I want to turn a path forward towards are these primary concepts. But it is, I feel really compelled to share more and to propagate these ideas that are infectious, that are solutions that bring us together. Because look, I do believe, I'm not like trying to say anybody that is assaulting citizens shouldn't be held accountable, but punishment on top of punishment, I get you is only going to go so far. I don't believe in capital punishment. You know why? Because it doesn't work. People here are so silly. In any state, anyone who believes in capital punishment, go to the French Revolution. You can stack them as high as you want. You can kill as many criminals as you want. And there's never been one place in history where that stopped rape or murder.
I'm like, what about Singapore? What about
Hello.
there are some examples of modern day states that have extremely,
Authoritarian.
well, no, I mean, there's no crime in those
Right.
states,
Right.
and
Very little.
I'm
Or
not, again, I'm not idealizing anything. All I'm saying is that, you know, the there's some fundamental problems, that seem to be getting worse and worse when a 6-year-old, you know, shoots his teacher. Like
with a
I have,
handgun.
I have an 8-year-old in second grade, and I'm like afraid to bring him to school every day. Like I should not have, any parent should not have to worry about that.
Yeah. And I think for us, we are so like our children, like what I'm talking about is that's what's at stake. How do you and I right now use this platform, use these tools? Like that starts to really inspire me to use these tools and everything we've studied around our businesses in order to share. Like there are ideas and concepts that are just as infectious as these ones that divide and cause fear. There are ideas that bring us together and lift us up and deliver enlightenment. There are ages of enlightenment. I mean, Italian culture and jewelry is so like the enlightenment of Rome, but the Renaissance. I mean, that is what echoes through our society today.
For
Like,
sure.
what happened that those ideas, what happened at those times in history, and literally what happened to birth the cultures we're talking about, right? These combinations of literally, it was still an echo from the Enlightenment and the Renaissance that was echoing through the people that colonized and captivated, enslaved the Africans and their cultures, and discovered and built or colonized the new world, and out of that, there was this like birthing of ideas. There are ideas that shift society so that people aren't at each other's throat and picking up guns.
Yeah, it's got to stop, man.
Yeah.
It's got to stop. But
Yeah. And how are we going to do that? What are we going to, one of my favorite things you ever said to me, that's one of like, I consider a foundation of our friendship, was like inside of, it must have been in the first year we met each other when we were 18 years old. And you told me the story, at least that first couple of years, of Carlos Santana. You want to tell that story, or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead. You tell it.
So you told me, Pasquale told me the story and sent me down of, and it's a paraphrase. I won't get this right. So, you can look it up, but the creation of the band Santana, directly related to all the music that we're talking about, by the way, right, is Carlos at some point was in the Bay Area and a part of the counterculture that we were talking about, and he had done LSD in some of the earlier testings and had a vision where essentially he saw all of this pain in the world. And I believe visually a lot of things turned red. Like he was seeing red everywhere. He was seeing red, and he just saw the suffering. Sometimes I see people, you did a video even of someone in downtown LA, man. And we see here in Seattle, you see someone pushing that shopping cart who is on the shortest end of humanity in the United States and is just beat down and is an image of human strife and suffering. And holding on mentally, and we see that as well. And you know, I lost my point there just a little bit, but
music is the answer for that struggle, right? The relief.
Exactly. That's it.
Absolutely, brother.
Exactly. Is that in order to transform, you know, this stuff that we see and what's going on, that enlightenment is the Santana story. So he saw that and he was weeping. They were sitting on a hill, like overlooking one of the hills in San Francisco with his friend, and he just said, "What's Carlos Santana said? What's the point? I'm seeing all of this pain, like oh my God." And he's telling his friend about this, and his friend turned to him, and what did he say? What are you gonna do about it?
Hell yeah.
And his trip and his energy shifted. And he claims that part of that moment was the creation of Santana and a life of expression of what's possible. You go online and go listen to Carlos Santana play the guitar sometime. You want to talk about an example of what I'm saying, of connecting to something greater than you and allowing information that is a spiritual connection to a greater architecture flow through you? If you don't see or feel that, you want to check yourself on what's going on with you, with him. There are artists that are like that, man. It is the source of that. What are you going to do? What are we going to do about this? Seriously, what are we going to do about this? You and I, and if you're listening, there are ideas to propagate and to share that are much more infectious, that bring us together. And it is simple things like your local police officer, your politicians, your bosses dancing in the street with you once or twice a year. That's what makes a difference.
Wow. That's amazing, bro.
Yeah, let's
Really touching.
propagate it, man. Let's propagate it, because I want to be a noble warrior of these ideas and ideals, and propagate and use my voice and all of these tools, because man, it is in part what we need, because there is some really insidious and divisive and dangerous ideas that are propagating psychologically and throughout our culture.
Amen. Amen, brother. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to Brazil.
That's right, man. And we're going to share.
We're going to
You're
share.
going to share. Yeah.
It's been amazing, man. Especially
Yep.
that last part really hit me, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. That's
Thanks.
why we're here, man.
Thanks. Thank you for everyone for being part of this amazing Path Forward community. Hit like and subscribe. Reach out to us. Ask us any questions you want. Who do you want to see as far as guests on the show? We appreciate your feedback very much. So
comment on this conversation. I said a lot of stuff pretty emphatically. People have reactions. Please react, respond, share. It's a conversation. This is not a monologue or a speech. It is a conversation. It's dialogue where it grows.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you all. We keep on keeping on, man. Well, hopefully we'll see if we can pull one more off before we travel next week.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's do it.
All right, y'all.
All right, signing out. Okay, ciao. Take care.
Ciao.